Okay, time to turn our attention to the Southampton game now. We'll be asking Kevin some other questions also. To finish, don't forget to head over to Martino's Facebook page, like and share the question, answer it of course, and win yourself some tickets for the Arsenal game. Okay, now gentlemen, not loads to preview I think in the shape of team selection, because I think because we won the last game you wouldn't expect wholesale changes. Now Michael, one thing, one decision I think he will have to make is whether to bring Wes Brown in. Now, annoyingly, the press conference is Friday, so depending on when you listen to this, we don't have that information come from the club yet regarding the fitness of Billy Jones. Assuming Billy Jones is going to play, would he leave Virginia in, considering he's just been to was it Hong Kong playing for Argentina?
It's a difficult one for Poyet to change the back four, because, as we mentioned earlier, the communication, that stability that you get from keeping a solid back four is vitally important. Whether or not he feels that Virginia is a little bit lethargic, a little bit tired. We've just been discussing off air the Raheem Sterling thing that we had with England there. So whether or not Virginia comes back and he's fully fit, whether or not he's a bit lethargic from the flight and whatnot, you don't know. Obviously, John O'Shea's had a good couple of weeks. Not John O'Shea, Wes Brown. Sorry, he's had a couple of weeks off.
Well, that's it, yeah.
So whether or not he changes it, I would be surprised if he makes the change. I think Virginia will play. I'm sure Gareth will be pleased with that.
Yeah, definitely. Nice position for Poyet to be in, Kevin, isn't it? Because either way, you think you have a solid looking back four there.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think the fact that Wes now will have had a couple of good weeks training under his belt. Yes, you're right about Santiago. He's been away, long trip, but I thought he'd done well in the last game, so he deserves his place in the team and that. But you have got to take it into the equation. Like, we've had a lot of travelling. How did they feel? What time did he play when he was away? What training did he do? And sometimes, and that sounds stupid, you watch him in training, you look to get a feel for him, you speak to him. I mean, that's a way. If you could make a decision just yourself and say, right, look, he is or he isn't playing, or watch him and speak to him, find out how he feels. Because there's also, if you don't do that, there's the other way of looking at it. If you did leave him out, how disappointed would he feel then? And also, if you did put him in, though, there's a great motivational factor as well in it. I think you'll talk to him, see how he feels, see what he's like after the travelling back. But I'll be surprised if he makes any changes.
Been impressed with Virginia this season?
Because to be honest with you, I think he had his critics. I think at the start people weren't sure, but I think as the seasons wore on, I think credit to him, full credit as well. I think in the games he's got stronger. He's found himself in positions 1v1 that you would think, come on then, like that, and he has delivered as well. I think at times some of the passes he's made, especially in behind fullbacks, has been excellent, and I think in the main he's had a really good start to the season.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a point we discussed last week, Michael, didn't we? We were concerned. Well, I know I was. To be honest, I can't remember if you and Gareth agreed with me. Probably not. Never normally do. We were concerned or slightly worried about Peter Crouch, the way he liked to bully defenders, throw them, put his hands on defenders, but he coasted through it, really, didn't he?
I actually thought he enjoyed the challenge as well, and I think you could more see Peter Crouch getting frustrated as well.
Yeah.
And I thought there was a couple of times you could see him actually throw Peter Crouch to the floor, and I was having a little chuckle to myself thinking, like that, and I thought he dealt with it really well.
Of course, at the start of the game he'd have made a byline for Virginia as well. He'll have left O'Shea alone, won't he?
And in his defence, I still think Peter Crouch is a good player. He's so much better than what people give him credit for.
He's excellent.
I can remember years and years ago when they were touting who's going to replace Quinney, and we played against QPR, and we were all going, you've got to go and get him. He was that good, and his touch, the proverbial big man, is excellent. But I think his overall football.
He's similar to Quinney in the way he plays, and technically, Quinney was always excellent technically.
Yeah, he was good, Quinney.
But I think going back to Virginia, probably one of the biggest compliments you can pay him is that he's keeping Wes Brown out of the team. When Wes has played so well for so long, especially at the start of this season, he was excellent, and the fact that he's keeping Wes Brown out of the team is a huge compliment to him.
It is, but it will also keep John O'Shea on his toes as well.
Yeah,
you've got to look at that as well. They'll all want to play. There's nothing worse than not playing, and they'll all want to play. And that also means that those in possession of the shirt have got to perform, because there's someone there literally ready saying, well, come on, the first bad game you have, I expect to be back in the team.
One change I suspect he could make would be to bring Jack Rodwell in for Gomez. Could anybody say that? I'm thinking away from home, we won't have possession as much as the home side, obviously. The physical thing might come in. Rodwell has that presence in midfield. If you're not looking to get on the front foot as much, could you see that happening?
Again, I think it probably goes back to what Bally just mentioned about watching the players in training, seeing how Rodwell has reacted to being dropped from the last game. I'm sure, as Bally's just said, he'll be chomping at the bit to be playing. He hasn't come here to sit on the bench and be watching lads playing football ahead of him. He's come to play football. He's come to be the main man in midfield, if you like. And at the minute he isn't, so he'll be chomping at the bit and he'll be desperate to play.
I think you also look with Jack though. You look at potential going forward. You initially look at how he does when he comes in the team, and everybody would hope he's a 10 out of 10 each week, but that's also going to be difficult. It's a new club, new time, possibly a new way the manager might want him to play. But I think he's going to get better and better, I really honestly do. And sometimes actually coming back out the team allows you to reflect on your performances, look at the way the team play, and I also think it ignites your fire again, and you want to go again. So if you think you haven't been doing as well as what you possibly could, then you might think to yourself, right, I've got to do that a little bit more. And then if you stay in there, I might have to do a little bit more to stay in there again. So it'll be interesting to see how Jack reacts, but I would imagine, knowing the sort of lad he is, that it'll be very positive, and irrespective of what the manager chooses to do, you'll get a positive reaction from him, and that's what we need.
And of course, you just need to look at Stephen Fletcher and the way he reacted to being left out.
Yeah, you look at Stephen, and the one thing we know he is a good goal scorer, and I've watched him, and some of the runs he makes into the box when the ball goes wide are brilliant. And I don't know if it was a Palace goal last year, the ball went wide and he's running the box, you're watching it thinking it was just like a training ground exercise, and the finish was exquisite in that. And then when he done what he done at the last home game, but what you really saying to Fletch now then was, okay, well, you can do it, now do it on a more regular basis, throw the gauntlet down to him a little bit, and he's got to pick it up. And
I think that's what Poyet did, isn't it, with dropping him and leaving him out the squad altogether. He did exactly that. He did throw the gauntlet down to him, and by the looks of it, considering the Stoke game, the performance, then he's obviously risen to that challenge. But now it's about it's about consistency and repeating that week in, week out.
Well, Gus said Fletcher would be the first name on the team sheet. We mentioned last week, Michael, we thought Conor Wickham played closer to him than normal. Obviously, he was still on the left. Kevin, I'd like to know what you think about the difference in Conor Wickham. How much has he changed? We heard stories before, obviously, Paolo Di Canio come out. Didn't question his attitude as such, but sort of questioned sometimes, how.
And that's a funny thing we keep going. He's still not that particularly old, is he?
Yeah.
Was he 21, something like that? I mean, he was playing in the 21s of us last year at times. He is, believe it or not, quite a laid-back, quiet character as well. Fantastic physique and specimen in terms of what you would like as a forward player, whether it be coming in off the left, the right, or more so as you're out and out centre forward and that. And I think over the time he's been here, you look at it and you think, right, have we done this right? Have we done that right? I mean, has he applied himself correctly? And I would imagine there's mitigating circumstances all the way around. Then it culminates in the end of last year, what he delivered, and you say fair play to him. Start of this year, he's done all right as well. And I think he needs to as well. And I think, it's sort of, he's of an age now, he's had enough little bits of experience to say now's the time where he's got to show everybody the real reasons that money was spent on him. And I have to hasten to add, yes, it was a lot of money at the time, but it was on potential, not on the player at that moment in time. And I think now's the time where you've got to say, right, start fulfilling the potential that the team of staff saw in you at that particular time.
Yeah, because Michael, a lot of the outside media might look at it and say, Sunderland fans weren't patient with him, etc. But the application is different on the pitch now, isn't it? He looks like a different player. Chasing lost causes, putting themselves about.
Sorry, but if I was to say to Michael, then, well, okay, then, what epitomises what a Sunderland supporter wants from his fans is somebody that's prepared to work hard. Now, when you start coaching, and Michael will probably back us up on this, you also get in a situation now where, yes, you do like to see players chasing the proverbial crisp packet, but then sometimes you say to them, what are you doing that for? You're wasting your energy. If you've got a chance, do it. If not, don't. And it sounds, some of the fans might go, you never know. Now, if there's an out-and-out chance you think the way to keep us, going to get the ball, whatever's happening, that you might get it, you go for it. And you put people under pressure. There's absolutely no chance you're getting the ball and you run 50 yards to slide off the pitch, hit the hoardings and everyone claps. Yes, I can understand the appreciation for your effort, but I'd also be thinking, well, when they get the ball, you're going to be jogging back because you're absolutely knackered, rather you was in the middle of the pitch. Now that comes obviously with coaching because you see things from a totally different point of view. But the one thing a Sunderland supporter that I've learnt over the years, I learnt very quickly when I came up here, is if you've got a chance of getting it, go for it. And if you don't, they will bark at you for it, and rightly so as well. And I think that's something that, as players at the club, they need to understand very quickly when they come to the club. So
sort of like control your enthusiasm and your aggression.
I think it goes back to decision making, which is what we've questioned Conor Wickham for throughout the course of this podcast. Certainly, decision making on the ball, decision making off the ball. As Bally says, you can work as hard as you like, but if you're not working hard in the right areas at the right time, or you're working hard on your own, it doesn't work. You've got to have 10 other players behind you who are working at the same time. You go chasing, especially as a forward. It's vital that you've got your midfield behind you, you've got your defence behind you.
In his defence, when he plays centre forward at times, if the players are not getting up to support him quick enough, that can be difficult, because irrespective of the size of you, if you're up against two burly centre backs and that, and you get hold of the ball, and the fact you've got 2v1 allows one of the centre backs to literally bite at you all the time. It hasn't got the time to come off of you because they're worried about a run or anything like that. So it's hard for him when he plays like that. Playing up front on your own, irrespective of what level, is very, very difficult. And it's so important when the ball goes into him that you've got bodies around him to work, either whether it's at the face of him or running beyond him. So if he does let back, he knows he's got a third man run.
And that's what we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, Bally, with the way that Will Buckley and I think it was Adam Johnson at the time, who just appeared to be 10-15 yards further up the pitch at all times when we had the ball, so they're there to support him. When we didn't have the ball, so they're there to support him when he's closing down.
If you go back to the Spurs game, the way Spurs play, for example, their wide men do come inside a lot to support the front man, and I love the way they play. And I thought that particular game, taking away the fact that obviously I'm a Sunderland person, I thought the way Spurs played was excellent. The way their football, the way the wide men came in to support the centre forward, if need be, the full-backs pushed on. But the one thing the centre forward did have was support around him.
Absolutely.
And I thought, and like I said, I like playing with one up front, but I also like making sure he's got bodies around him to support him, because I think otherwise it can be a long, lonely journey.
Yeah, absolutely can.
Mentioning Kevin now saying you don't want a player to show his enthusiasm and chase a lost cause, perhaps, and that happened in the game last week, Michael. Can you remember you pointing out? I think it was Gomez, and the crowd got agitated because he didn't go and chase the ball down. And then you turned to me straight away and said, he's well out of position if he goes and chases that down. And
but it's also what you can understand when you're sitting in the crowd, and we're looking at it from a purist coach point of view, and we're sitting back with the benefit of hindsight and everything of saying each other. But when you're sat there as a supporter and you want to win a game of football, and your energy is sort of sedimentary, you're sat there, isn't there? So you force everything out to the player, and you're sort of shouting, come on, get after the ball. And if they were to sit back after, they'd probably think, we never had a chance of getting that. But what they want to see, and like I said, I learned it a long time ago, they want to see players wear their hearts on their sleeve. They want to see players, irrespective of their ability, whether they're, I'm not saying the worst player, but a player with a certain amount of ability or a player with a top ability, they expect them to work hard. And when it comes to chasing lost causes, there's a degree of it, but there is that lost cause, and there is that lost cause with a chance. So the one you don't want to go after is the one they've got no chance of getting, because it is a waste of energy.
And I think that's what Stephen's talking about. There was a time when Gomez could have gone flying in, and there was a lot of people calling for him to go in. And I think that's when a bit of experience, a bit of a calm head, which is definitely what Gomez gives you on and off the ball. He didn't go flying in because he knows if he goes there, he's just going to get picked off it, and that comes with a bit of experience.
It does, because there's times when you watch games now, and you see people come out the centre midfield, they go flying out, and then a 10 just drops in that space, gets the ball, turns and attacks your back four. So it's so important. Sometimes you don't go running to the ball. It's something we, you teach with the under-21s. They're full of raw passion for the game, and we're sort of avidly saying to them, when we've got possession of the ball, keep two backs, keep your shape nice, don't go chasing. Now, you try telling a young player that when he's saying, well, you want me to be enthusiastic, we say, well, I do some, but I also want you to have a brains behind it and not just go running for the sake of it.
That's something you learned, Bally?
Not really, no. If I'm being brutally honest, I think I just ran around like an idiot, if I'm honest with you. But saying that, but then I had the energy to do it, and the one thing.
But later on in your career, did you sort of realise that?
I would have said, when you're younger, you tend to want to do your job and everybody else's.
Yeah.
So when it comes to being on the pitch, as time go on, no, I'll be honest with you, I would chase a lost cause, and I'd like to think, and I know it sounds a bit conceited, that I'd get there most of the times as well. I would only chase a lost cause I thought I had a chance of getting, or I'd be looking, thinking there's a chance that might happen. And it's like, you talk about a centre forward goes in on goal, and you watch centre backs give up because they think, oh, he's going to score. But what happens if the goalkeeper saves it drops down again, and then he tucks it into an empty net? Whereas if that centre back had the nous to believe in his keeper, I think he might save this, and if I'm back there, then I'll clear it. So, I'm sorry, no, I used to chase that proverbial, not lost cause, but that cause. But I wouldn't change the way I played. No, I've got to be honest with you. I think that the best quote I have was from Chris Makin, once you talk about running out of position. I saw him on the stairs at the stadium. I hadn't seen him for years and years and years and years. That's how long. And he come up, we had a lovely cuddle, and he said how great it was to see him. We had a bit of crack, and he went to me, he went, Eddie, I've never had the chance to say thanks to you. And I sort of looked thinking, what have I done now? And he just said, well, he said, whenever we were playing together, he said, if I was having a hard time off a winger who was getting the better of me, and I wouldn't have said physically as in anything like with Chris, because Chris was a proper hard lad as well, and he could deal with people no problem, but he said if a winger was going at me, beating me, he said, before I know it, he said, you'll come running past me and put him into row Z type thing. And at the time, you're doing your job for your team, your mate, yourself and everything. But it was lovely, the fact that he remembered it. And this was also comes from the same bloke, though, that when we played at Newcastle, I hit the crossbar with the tackle, and it really gets me goat up when people say, you know, it was a back pass. I read it in the press, and I'm thinking, all right, so I understand press like playing things up, but I'm thinking, you know, you're that thick, you thought it was a back pass, you know. It was a proper tackle, and at the time, both myself and Duncan would have willingly probably wanted to hurt each other as well. Now, I'm not saying that was the right thing or the wrong thing, but in the throes of the game, that's what you do. But Duncan was that little bit quick as he got out of the way, so I obviously went full with everything. It's a crossbar, adds a little melee. But as we're sort of then starting to play again, and Chris, you making shout that, Bally Bally like that, and I'm looking around thinking he's going to say, what you doing? And all he said was, that's the funniest thing he's ever seen. Now, you know, in the middle of a derby game, it was brilliant, because you can imagine me, I'm quite het up now. If he'd have started having a go at me, I'd have probably told him to F off, and then would have been really angry, the pair of us. But it was brilliant what he'd done, and there, like I say, Chrissy everybody should chase the lost cause. They've got a chance of getting. Otherwise, yeah, you're expending energy, and it's a waste.
Where would you see yourself in the modern game? Now, you know, I mean, you know, because when you pick the Sunderland side yourself, you have 3 midfielders now, which is the way the modern game is, really, because it's all about not getting overrun in the middle of the park. Would you see yourself where Lee Cattermole plays?
Well, the system, the manager, at times he goes with a 4-1 and 2 midfielders. He likes somebody sitting in front of the back four, and I think if you look at the way Lee's playing at the moment, the system at times set up brilliant for him, and I think he does it absolutely fabulous, where it allows, if they only play one up front, that one of the centre-backs can have a little bit of drops if they're worried about pace and that. I think he clears up things in front of him, reads the game so well now, and I think now what he's doing excellently is when he gets it, you see him give it the first thing he sees, and he keeps the ball moving, and that his tackling, his interception, his heading, everything about his game is excellent. I like also playing though with two, not sitting but 2, but I like a 10.
Yeah,
I like
Giaccherini.
Yeah, I like that, and I think with Giaccherini, I think he's an excellent player. I think that, you know, and I think over the next few months we'll see more and more of that again when the manager has the opportunity to, you know, employ him whatever tactics he wants to do. But I enjoyed having Giaccherini. I thought he'd done it really well. I thought the way he played was good. I like the fact that, you know, in the Premier League and unlock doors, so to speak. But where would I see myself now? I still think you could still play in the 2, but I think that myself and the way Lee used to play, even though Reedy's way of doing it was not a rigid 4-4-2, but in so many words it was. But Kev would drop off as a 10 to come around the front of Quinny. So we did do that, you know, but possibly at the time he didn't employ it as a 4-3-3. It was just like a 4-4-2 when Kev dropping off or working around it. But what really happened well was Clarkey would get forward more than what I would. So I became the natural sitter anyhow, without, you know, sort of playing the way Lee does. But in the same token, I like to see Lee getting forward, like the goal he scored at West Brom. People, when they say how many goals you get, and I say I've got 27 for Sunday, and they're quite surprised. And I got forward really well, but at the time I wouldn't have said my finishing was great. And if that had been something that I'd have improved on probably earlier on in my career, I'd have probably scored a lot more. But it naturally became that role because Lee was the one that bombed on. And I just then, literally, if the fullbacks had gone on, Mickey or Chris, whoever was playing there, I would just slide on that side. So if it did break down, that I'd slow him down. So you naturally do that. But would I be able to tackle like I did in the past? Yeah, I think I would. And the only reason being, I get my goat up with people when they, you know, you talk to them and they go, "Oh, Bally, you're full of passion, D lad," like that. They're talking away to me like that. You weren't a great player, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, right, that's it. So I start going through a list of technical abilities, and I go, "Oh, could I head the ball? Yeah, great header of the ball, you son." And then, could I pass with both feet? Yeah. I said, admittedly, it might not be a pass like your midfield maestros. Oh, good, you're good with both feet, son. I said, could I tackle? Oh, tackle? You're one of the best. What about leadership? Hey, you got them all together. By the time you've listed it all, I'll go at the end of it, so I weren't such a bad player then, was I? And you can see him look at me going, "Oh, you're bloody right there, son," like that, you know. So, no, I could adapt, and I'd have to adapt. And I think you look at Lee now, and when you consider the little issues he had in the past and that, and I spoke with him, it wasn't a meeting that people said, "Oh, you've got to speak to Kevin about your discipline." Myself and Lee were sat in a box watching a game, and we just happened to crack on. And it was brilliant. And I said at the time, I said, your enthusiasm for the game is unbelievable, and I love the way he tucks his shirt in. I love the way he leads. I love the way it means something to him. And I said, but most of them are not for tackles. It's for your innocuous little things like tripping when someone runs by you, or pulling his shirt, or something that's not worth a booking, shall we say. You know, if you're going to get a booking, you want it to be worthwhile.
Yeah, you'd have preferred to have had a proper booking.
Yeah, proper tackle. And the trouble with the modern game is they are booking you for anything. And yes, people can say, oh, it's cleaned it up. I ain't sure about that. I still think there's got to be a big physical edge to the game. Now, I'm not talking an out-and-out topping. I'm talking about proper challenges. Now, the game has got quicker, so there are going to be more instances where that happens. But I think physically, the game needs tackles. It needs physical confrontation. I honestly do. I think it's so important.
Do you see a lot of yourself in Lee Catmull?
I think Lee is a leader, and I think the fact that, you know, we talk about Shazy how he leads, you now look at Lee and how he leads, and I think that's where you're lucky that we've got the PIs we have, because you've got more than one captain. Now, one might wear the armband, but there's more than one captain on the pitch. And I've got to say, in the time I played, I was also very fortunate to have some great players around me that were the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything Bally said there. I think
that's he's scared of doing otherwise.
No, I definitely agree with all that sort of stuff, because that is important. And Bally talking about leadership and stuff like that, then that was probably, Bally, of all those things that you listed, I'd probably say that was your biggest strength, that your leadership qualities and the way that you did manage your dressing room.
I loved it, to be fair, but I was lucky also. What are you two doing that for? You might as well just tell us, because you can't move an arm. And you used to interrupt, and you go back to that. The one thing about in the chain leadership, and I think the same with Shades, the same with Cats, I think it's so important that you do have these people in the chain, because they're ultimately what are going to run the club for you. And the manager's got to trust in these people. And when I go back to what Peter Reid loved the fact that we could take the heat off him. And what I mean by that is that there was incidents, wasn't it? We'd deal with them. I mean, who was the lad that drove the buggy into the lake?
Luke Weaver.
Luke Weaver. We used to have a great affiliation with her down at Newton Aycliffe, wasn't it? And I still see the bloke that owns it now. And Luke Weaver only decided to drive one of the buggies in the pond. Thought it was hilarious. Like, I went absolutely ballistic at him. Absolutely ballistic. Young lad. Said, and I won't say what I did say to myself, you can't put that on air. But like, in not so many words, told him properly. And I went to see Reedy, and Reedy was all for fining him, God knows how much money, and I thought, well, he's only a young lad, we all make mistakes and that. So I went back to see him, I said, right. So I told him one thing and went and told the gaffer another. And I just basically said, look, you're going to be fined this, which was agreed, no problem. I said, but he wants you fined that. And I said, and rightly so as well. I said, however, you're a young lad. I said, everybody deserves a chance. I said, if you ever do anything like that again, I said, there'd be 3 times though. And he just went fine. And we used to deal with it ourselves, didn't we? And it was the right way of doing it. Yeah, but fancy driving a bloody boat.
Well, we were gonna finish a section just asking Kevin some random stuff. We've kind of just went off on a tangent and crossed over into that anyway, so we will just carry on with that. I asked some people to send some tweets. Now, a little bit lazy of people, I think, to start going down a certain route and asking a certain question because of the way you were as a player. So what I will do...
No, go down.
Yeah, no, well, what I will do is I'll mention the tweet of, you remember David Priest, who was at Sunderland?
Priest, yeah.
Well, he kind of summed it all up. He put it in a different way. He came at it from a different angle. And he said, ask Kevin if the only player he was ever scared of was John Kay.
No, I can't say I was ever scared of any player in my career.
I thought that was inside info with David Priest.
I knew for a fact Bally was going to answer that. I could have answered that for him.
I've got to be honest with you, whenever I played a game of football, whoever I came up against, it never bothered me how big they were, whether they were small and stocky. I used to like it when they kicked me because I think, good, you're in the game now. And then I used to like knowing by the end of the game that I was the main man. And it sounds a bit conceited and big-headed, but that was my job on the pitch to do that, so I had no qualms of doing it. Now, in reference to John Kay, I have to say Priest is right. Casey was one of the nicest lads you'd ever wish to meet. The job he's currently doing, where he's helping people out the way he does, is fantastic. And as a lad who's very close to my wife, my wife and my children, as in like friends of the family and that, but he's also one hard lad, like a proper hard lad. Now, in the sense of like, how can you gauge that? I don't think many people can break their leg in a game, and then when they get picked up on one of those old-fashioned stretchers, roll off to Hawaii 5-0, and at the time I remember shaking my head thinking he's mad. And like I said, just on there, I socialised a lot with John, and we used to go into work together and that. he is one hard lad. Now, the only time he said to me he felt like fainting was when he was in the hospital and he lifted his leg and one part stayed on the table and the other part came up, and he said that was the only time he felt a bit sick. But no, I was never scared of anyone, never felt intimidated, and for me, whenever I played a game of football, I wanted to know who I was up against, in a sense of, well, we're in for a game tonight. And I've had it many a time where you'd have two of them trying to do it, and I just put my elbows out and done the pair of them at the same time. Now, one of them complained about it, but what I said to him was after, so you weren't coming to do me then? Well, yeah. I said, well, why moan about it then? I said, that's part and parcel of the game. But I have to say, when I talk about that, I'm talking about the 90 minutes in the game. Now, once that game's finished, whether you've hurt me or I've hurt you, or you've come out on top or I've come out on top, and like I said, in the main, I'd like to think I came out on top. I'd shake your hand and thank you for the game afterwards. And I learned that very early in my career from Mick Hartford. Mick and I probably kicked 10 bells out of each other in a game. It sort of started when Mick giving me a right hook and me elbowing him. Then it proceeded to us kicking 10 bells out of each other all game. And Mick came up to me afterwards, and I'll never forget it, and it taught me a valuable lesson, gave me a cuddle and said, thanks very much, I really enjoyed that. And I remember thinking, you sadistic bastard at the time. But what he taught me was, leave it in the game. You can cross that bastard out as well.
I mean, the ratio is about 10 to 1 of people asking who the hardest player you played against was, so I guess I'll have to throw that one in.
I don't think I ever came across anybody that physically made me think, oh no, I'm up against him today, because you'd always find ways to beat him. You'd always want to get one over him. It'd always mean you might have to time your tackle that little bit earlier. But you knew you were always going to be in the game, but no. And like I said, by the end of the game, I'd like to think I came off the pitch and it was more who theirs was. Now, if you ask me in the sense of who tactically or technically, that might be a different. Pace was always something that any player would fear, coming up against a player that was very, very, very quick, for example. Now, I wasn't slow, and I could run pretty much all day, and I could cover ground at a decent lick. But if you come up against a Michael Proctor and you're playing centre back and he was pulling off your shoulder and ducking in behind you, you know you're in for a tough game, because you now got to tactically outthink him. You look at Kieran Dyer, when Kieran Dyer was playing at Ipswich, Kieran Dyer never fulfilled his talent, never fulfilled it, and it was such a shame because we played against them, and I was never in fear of, obviously, players that could hurt me, because I felt, well, that's part of the game. If they want to do it, then I'd make sure I got them back twice as hard. But what Kieran was very, very good at was breaking forward, and you had to track his runs, and it was relentless because he was a really fit lad. So I wouldn't have said anybody frightened me in the sense of the hardest I've come against physically, and I've played against a big lad. John Gale at Birmingham, we played against him, and he is the most lovable bloke you'd ever wish to meet after the game. And in this particular game, I was marking him, but he was kicking everybody. Then he absolutely smashed John Kay, and I just thought, right, that's it, I've had enough of him. And I remember literally giving him what for, and he's on the floor getting treatment off the physio and that. And as he's sort of laying on the floor and that, Casey's looking at me, and I'm like, Casey's looking over my shoulder at him. So I'm going, what's he doing now to Casey? And Casey's looking over my shoulder and going, I'll put it this way, if looks could kill, you're dead. He's going like that. But we carried on doing it for the rest of the game. Now, to be fair to John, again, he was a proper lad. It was like, I'll get you and you get me, but they shake your hands at the end of it. And then whenever you see him, whether it be in the bar, whether you see him out, I always judge a man by the fact if he's got the balls to come out and give you a cuddle and say, how are you doing, like that. It's nothing about, being soft or anything like that. You saw the way, I give cuddle with Michael. It's a genuine feeling for him, and they were the same. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed the physical side of the game.